Hey everyone, today's workshop is going to be focusing on building a startup team. We're going to talk about what company culture is and how to build good company culture, as well as how to find co-founders, what to look for when you're trying to find co-founders and where to find them. So before I begin, the check-in code for today's workshop is Team Startup, and you can check in at acmucsd.com. And then also as a side note, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to unmute and interrupt me, or you can just type in the chat. So getting started, I wanted to ask if any of you know what company culture is, if there's any words that come to mind when I say company culture, or if you have any informal definitions. Toxic. Well, there are some company cultures that are toxic, and we'll definitely talk about that. Um, but yeah, um, going into what company culture is and sort of defining it, you could define it with a variety of words, including behavior. So, how employees treat each other and then how they also treat customers helps define a company's culture. Values, so the values that a company has and the shared values that employees have defines company culture and helps with the vision that everyone has at a company. Passion also helps define company culture. So, passion is what motivates people to do what they do. And this motivator is part of what a company or a part of what culture a company has. And then lastly, outcome helps define company culture. So, a shared outcome or goal that people want to achieve helps unify the company, and that's all part of the culture. So, you may be wondering why building culture, especially building good culture, is important. And it's important for a variety of reasons, including, well, first off, it just naturally supports good business. Having a positive and good culture associated with your company helps build your brand as well as just building business in general. And kind of going along with that, it helps actualize your goals. So when you know what sort of vision you have and the culture that you're trying to promote in a company, that helps you realize what you want to do with the company and what goals you want to achieve. And kind of going along with that, it just generally keeps the company focused when everyone knows what ultimate goal they're trying to achieve and what they should be or how they should be treating each other and treating customers. And that also kind of goes along with my last 2 points. The first being it creates autonomy when everyone has that shared mindset and is working with each other. That just promotes sort of harmony within the company. And then that way, everyone could just get the things done that they want to efficiently. And again, yeah, that ensures efficiency. Again, everyone has that shared mindset, and that's really helpful when you're all trying to solve the same problem. So earlier, someone mentioned toxic when it comes to like things that come to mind when it comes to company culture. And I wanted to go into a real world example, which is Uber. So I don't know if many of you remember, but in 2017, Uber was in the news after they did an internal investigation of the workplace and culture. And this had resulted in dozens of employees being fired. And what the investigation found was that Uber had a very toxic culture and workplace. They found that Uber sort of promoted aggression among employees. Coworkers were really aggressive with each other, and there was also this sort of competitive atmosphere. It was like coworkers, instead of working with one another, were competing amongst each other. And this like toxic environment and aggression didn't just exist among like coworkers, but also among like bosses and their employees and that sort of dynamic. So it was just aggressive on all fronts. And then also the culture was found to be sexist. People described Uber's culture as having a bro culture, which means it unfairly favored young men, which led to harassment and discrimination. And then just altogether, there's just a lot of unnecessary conflict that was promoted by Uber's culture. And we can see that Uber didn't keep, company culture, especially like good, positive company culture in mind when it came to their employees and the day-to-day tasks that they did. And this negatively impacted Uber's brand, as well as the employees and the customers, because the quality of service that customers were receiving did go down. So going off of that, I want to talk about how to build good culture at a startup. So before you do anything, you need to be proud of your solution. If you're trying to share your vision with others and tell people about your goals and what you want to do, you need to first own it and understand like what you want to do, and that way others can identify with you and also want to solve that similar problem. When I say also like be proud of your solution, I'm also talking about you maintaining the right sort of energy and environment. You need to have like a positive energy that's will then result in like people also being proud of like the solution that you all are trying to achieve. And like coming right after that is just creating a long-term vision. So creating a vision that is something that's definitely can be achieved. It's not like impossible, but it's also something that you will have to achieve in the long run. A lot of great companies have these grand long-term visions that, at some point might have seemed impossible, but it's something that they continually work towards. And all of the employees that work there also work towards that same, big long-term vision. And it's really inspiring for employees when they have a vision to look forward towards, and also attractive to other people that might not work there, but also share that similar, goal. Once you have that vision, you need to also make sure that vision is externally focused. A lot of companies will try to, go along with the trends and only focus on a culture that uh, like talks about or like focuses on the employees in like an internal aspect, but in the long run it's helpful to be externally focused because the customer should always come first. And then once you have that vision, you also need to start building diversity. And when I say diversity, I mean diversity in all things, backgrounds, opinions, etc. When it comes to having a stable, good company culture, diversity is important because you want to have a culture and workplace where people with different backgrounds and opinions can get along. And at that same time, you want to, promote discussion and even sometimes debate. So that way you get, the objective and right solution. Um, and then once you have all of that, you want to develop a process within the company that promotes that culture. So whether that's like when you're hiring or onboarding or marketing or just anything really, you want to really make sure that culture that you have been working towards and that vision that you've been planning is established within the company. And once it's established, don't be afraid of, changing it up and just plan on it evolving in general. Obviously, nothing that you create at first will be perfect. And there will be different situations and events that will make you realize, oh, I need to change, our vision. Maybe it's too grand. I don't know if we can really achieve it, or just different things like that that'll make you want to change the culture and vision that you have. And you also might want to change it just to keep up with, certain workplace trends that are happening. So just make sure that it's not, set in stone. Plan on it evolving. And those are the steps you want to take to build good culture. So to finish up the company culture aspect of today's workshop, I want to finish with another real world example. The company being Patagonia, and this is a positive example. If you don't know Patagonia, Patagonia is an outdoor retailer, and they're really committed to their employees, customers, and the environment. When the founder created Patagonia, the founder set out to build an uncompany. So what that means is Patagonia is very like non-traditional company, and they try to use that to their advantage because they do so many things that a lot of companies these days don't really do. One of which being they embrace work flexibility. Patagonia has a really chill environment, and they do so much for their employees. They offer a lot of benefits, and they offered these benefits before other companies even thought of them. And while they're doing all of this for their customers, they're also having this central goal in mind, which is the environment and saving the earth. You often see Patagonia in the news, just doing a lot of work for the environment and trying to protect landscapes and different things. And that having that like main central goal is really important for the company because a lot of the employees, or if not all of the employees, align with that goal. And we can see that when employees take their own time, like outside of work, to also like help the environment or do different things that aligns with that vision. So at the same or with that in mind, a lot of employees end up, returning to Patagonia. They don't really have a lot of employees leaving just because they have that like strong central goal. And Patagonia is able to do that because they constantly reinforce their values in their products, with their employees, and just with their main message in general. So I wanted to move on to finding the right team and talking about how to find co-founders, why they're important, and where to look for them. So, why are co-founders important? So, when it comes to creating a startup, co-founders are important. For one thing, it helps with productivity. So, there's a lot of work that you have to do when you're creating a startup. And obviously, if you have more people, you're able to divide that work. But on top of that, you're also able to bounce ideas off of each other and just get more opinions in general. So, the work that you're doing is higher in quality, but also quantity when you have co-founders. Co-founders also provide support. So the startup journey is long and it's intense, and it's nice to have people along the way that can support you and sort of provide the sort of balance within the company. But yeah, and lastly, co-founders are proven for success. So if we try to pattern match a lot of the successful companies today that, all started out as startups, almost every startup or like successful startup at least had co-founders. It wasn't just like a one-man team. And these co-founders were really integral for the company's success. That established team from the beginning was there and helped make the startup establish itself. And if we look at this graphic, we can see that, you know, when analyzing, it looks like they analyzed 101 startups and why they failed. The third most reason why a startup would fail was that they did not have the right team. So just from the start of things, if you don't have the right team, if you don't try to create, if you don't look for the right co-founders or just don't have co-founders in general, that can easily lead to the startup, failing or succeeding. And then I also wanted to talk about some successful co-founders and their stories, some of which y'all might know. The first being Microsoft, which was created by Bill Gates and Paul Allen. So their story is these were childhood friends who were both passionate about computers and entrepreneurship, and that's when they decided to create Microsoft. Google, which is created by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Both of them met in the Stanford PhD program, and they worked on a research project together that eventually developed into the Google search engine that we know today. And then lastly, Apple, which is created by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. These two met at a summer job and realized that with Wozniak's technical skills and Jobs' business foresight, they could build and sell computers and create a company together. So, with that in mind, I want to talk about what to look for when it comes to co-founders, especially good co-founders. So, good co-founders are able to handle stress. Like I was talking about earlier, the startup journey, it's long, it's stressful, it's intense, and you're going to need someone that provides some sort of stability within the company. If you're not able to be there, if you're not able to do something, co-founders should be able to like handle that stress and just create a sort of balance within the company. Good co-founders are also compatible, so they have skill sets that you might not have, but just in general, you're able to work with them well, and each like you complement each other and create that balance. Um, Good co-founders are also should share similar values and goals. So this is similar to what I was saying earlier about culture. When people in general, not just co-founders, but people in general, when they have similar values and goals, that will equally motivate them and make them want to like work together towards those values and goals. So that's something that's especially helpful when you're trying to find co-founders who are trying to create a startup. And then most importantly, above anything else, you should like working with them and trusting them. Creating a startup is hard and it takes a lot of time and energy. So the people that you work with, you obviously want to like them, but which is really important. But also you want to trust them because trust is what's fundamental to your relationship and to your journey. So the people that you want to work with from the start, you should like them and you should trust them. So now that you know why co-founders are important and what you should be looking for, there are different ways that you can get started. And I think that the first thing that's most important is focusing on yourself. So before you go out and look for co-founders or go out and create the company, you need to understand yourself first and do some sort of self-reflection. You should look at your strengths and weaknesses and just understand your skill set in general. And then when it comes to understanding yourself in the context of, finding people you want to work with, you should understand, what type of people do you like working with? How do you like working with people? And having these things in mind and understanding that will help you when you're going later into your journey of actually like finding people. Also, when you're trying to find people to work with, finding co-founders, you shouldn't look for people that are exactly like you. I know like it's easy for people to just go with people that they're comfortable with and that kind of match them, but that's not helpful for a company, especially when we're trying to create diversity. You need someone that complements your skills and personality, because that'll help make you successful. So now I'm going to go into where to look. So one thing that's recommended is starting with people you know. As I was talking about earlier, you need to trust and like these people. And obviously, with people that you know, you can get a sense of whether or not you trust them, and especially if you like them. And then additionally, also, you have to have some sort of level of commitment from these people. You understand whether or not they're committed to what you're working on. So with people you know, it's able to sort of gauge all of these things. But at the same time, you have to be careful. It's a common saying to, be careful when you're mixing business with, relationships, especially like friends and family. But starting with people you know doesn't have to include friends and family. It also includes like classmates or people you've worked with before. So starting with that can help you, can create like a good base of people. But on top of that, just working on projects first and working on projects in general. When you work on projects, you're able to see how people react to different situations. And then also, if you work on like a variety of projects, you see how they work with like different projects also. And you can reflect on the people that you've worked with before and just see what sort of personalities and work styles you like and just take note of that. Um, and yeah, that's where you should look for co-founders. I wanted to end with just how you can get involved. And this isn't just for like if you're creating a startup and trying to, find co-founders or anything, but this is just in general. I think these tips are helpful. The first being networking. So it's important to meet like-minded people in orgs like ACM. We have different communities for various interests, and there's also a bunch of other student orgs out there where you can find people that are into the things that you're into, and as I mentioned earlier, if you have like a similar vision or trying to find people with the same values, networking is really important. Again, not just if you're starting a startup, but if you're just trying to meet people in general. And then there's also a lot of resources that UCSD has that you can take advantage of. There's the basement, which has an infrastructure for people trying to create startups. So if you're trying to get really into creating startups, if you already have one, or if you're just trying to know more about it, the basement is definitely a place to go to. And then in general, I can't recommend it enough. Work with people. I know it says outside of class, but even inside of class, just work on projects and just see who you like working with, what types of personalities and different work styles you like working with. And then also just get that experience down. That'll be really helpful for when you're actually trying to create a startup or when you're trying to find co-founders to help you along the way. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute or send something in the chat. But yeah, thank you.